A seasonal contest pits two competitors in a fight to the finish. But nature interrupts their competitive bloodlust with a terrifying surprise of her own. Fueled by whimsical memories of youthful vigor and black box pharmaceuticals, Roth protects himself and his work with hate, the good kind, and high-powered firearms. His adversary, Lucifer, brings little more to the contest than a spade and dismissive, self-righteous contempt. Residents from several neighborhoods gather. A pharmacist is belittled. An old man's sanity is questioned. Somali immigrants celebrate. A Seminole family's revelation is revealed. And a bloody contest none could have predicted nor seen in their most deranged nightmares unfolds. The neighborhood, nay, the country, will never be the same. Taking slow, deep breaths, Roth fought to master himself. He hated Lucifer with a passion he had for years, yet the appearance of the groundhogs last summer had exacerbated the rivalry, which, in truth, was born of a competition between thumbs. Green thumbs, that is. Each had endeavored to best the other year after year, and as the arms race, the boughs race continued, so rose the stakes. Roth observed that Lucifer, perched in an Adirondack chair on his porch, watched the unpacking procession with a dismay that bordered on horror as Roth extracted a bandolier from the trunk. He knew Lucifer was a gunophobe, that he had worked tirelessly while in Washington to support the passage of legislation that would disarm victims. Who else can be disarmed but the people who obey the law? Relishing every moment of discomfort he was causing Lucifer, Roth slowly wrapped the bandolier around his chest, making sure the grinning magazines caught the light of the frowning sun. Then, as slowly as he could, he withdrew his shiny tool from the Jag's curvaceous trunk, savoring every inch, watching Lucifer's face darken with desperation as the glistening shaft grew longer and longer, and yes, longer. Slinging the semi-automatic AR-15 over his shoulder, Roth peeked under his overgrown brow at Lucifer, who was now on his feet, knobby knees knocking, pages from his newspaper languidly fluttering from his trembling hand. The sun had just gone down, and Roth was getting ready for bed when he heard a loud thunk on the back of his house, and then another, and then another, and maybe another, but really his hearing wasn't that good anymore. He quickly stumbled toward the back of his house, vehemently cussing the shouts of pain that sprang from every one of his crepitating joints. Losing his balance, he caromed off the hallway wall, loosing pitchers from their moorings like icicles cascading from a gable. Turning a bend, he bounced off an end table, sending a family heirloom crashing to the floor. "I never liked that side of the family," he grumbled, still hustling toward the ruckus. After slamming the banana clip into place with a great metallic click, Roth stuck the barrel of the gun through the window and opened fire. The bright muzzle flash lit up the whole backyard like a bright muzzle flash. In a nearby neighborhood, Somali immigrants cheered the discordant crackle of fully automatic gunfire, just like home. Unpublished reviews. Nothing can keep this magnificent story from becoming a #1 New York Times bestseller. Its author gave the paper's editor-in-chief an offer he couldn't refuse. New York Times. I laughed so hard, I wet my Huggies. Active, over 50. Beaux esprits won't nictitate while imbibing this Dionysian tale, but they may horripilate. The author must be immune to exorodespotism or azagophrenia to have poetized such a mordant tale. Abstruse, hippopotamonstros, sesquipedalian, quarterly. We knew the author would go far. We are so proud. Monthly newsletter, Eastern State Psychiatric Penitentiary. This is the After Party. Your hosts are The Great Order and No White Guilt. The crown winner of last week is Mr. Blue-Eyed Bear, a wonderful, wonderful participant, a gentleman whom we love, especially for his desire to promulgate the good, the well-being, the salubriousness that going free brings to our brothers and sisters. And we bless and salute you for that, Captain and Sir. And he financially gifted $60 to White Wellbeing last week. Thank you so very much. In second place was another wonderful person, Mrs. Jess Horst, who financially gifted $35 to the service of White Wellbeing. Bless you, dear lady. Promethean hails and congratulations to the both of you. Everyone, you may financially gift on Entropy, which should be up and running already at 15% cost to you, where you can also watch the stream and ask and vote on questions in the Tall Kevin widget, also known as the question widget. Or you may financially gift on Cash App. You can find the links for both down in the description. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Now, today we have Tiina and Eunice on tap. And before we have those lovely people tell us all of their thoughts about all of the different things we will go into today, we will first ask them to introduce themselves to our esteemed community, those who are new and who may not know who they are just yet, and the kind of work they do and where folks can find them. And then the heroic one and only musician extraordinaire, the Great Order, Jared George, will take us into the conversation. Please, Tiina and Eunice, the floor is yours.
Hi.
Hi there. So, of course, we are live streamers, activists, and politicians from Finland, and we mainly do live streams in Finnish, and we have been working at it for several years and have built quite an audience for ourselves. We are also active in politics. Eunice is in the city council in our hometown in Oulu, which is in northern Finland, and I am his vice councillor. And we also participate in a lot of nationalist conferences in different countries in Europe and report events like demonstrations and travel around to live stream different sorts of events. So that's mainly what we do. And some people might know me from working with Ramsey Paul on the Happy Homelands live stream for a couple of years. And Eunice has also been a guest on several different foreign live streams, like Red Eyes.
Yeah, lots of others.
Yeah.
We met Ramsey Paul in 2017, I think, in Stockholm, and then Tiina started working with him, and then it ended last year, and we started to do our own English live streams, which we actually just ended 10 minutes ago. The show is called Out of Line. It's on DLive, and it's pretty cool. We have lots of viewers also there. And yeah, I used to be a libtard, and in 2008 I understood the problem, and since then I've been talking against mass immigration and all this nonsense that is harming our Western countries. And I also ran as a candidate in 2012, and in 2017 I won the election. So now I'm in the city council, and I'm running again in next April, and for re-election, and hopefully we will both get in this time. And it's a small situation or small position to influence anything, but you have to take the local situation also into account, and you can also work against this. And we have had some pretty big wins in this matter, especially this month. We got a pretty good outcome, and because of course the conservatives and the others, they know that it's the election year, so they also want to act as sane politicians. But as soon as the election is over, they will resume their bad politics, and that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to influence in the at the cultural level, but also in the politics level, because I think that both are needed. That you need to have a voice also in those arenas, that so that the other politicians understand that they cannot do what they want. They can lie all they want to their constituents and their voters, but if we are there, or other so-called right-wing or far-right politicians are there present, they have to adjust their things to a certain level of sanity, so they don't lose all their votes to us. So that's what we are doing. We also do, as Tiina said, IRL streams. We have recorded lots of marches, far-right communists, all sorts of events in Finland, Sweden, and also the Baltic countries, Estonia, Lithuania, and,
Netherlands.
Also we were
Denmark.
Yeah, those. And I was also in France when Marine Le Pen was running.
So that's impressive. It's great to hear about the activism, and maybe we'll start with that. I have to apologize, actually. Jason and I will both be off camera today. We usually are on camera, but we have the both of you. You're both looking great, well rested. It's that week between Christmas and New Year's, and it's a holiday time, but little up in the air here. So I just have to be off camera. Tiina, I know we've spoken before, but Eunice, this is the first time we've spoken. So it's an honor to speak, and very happy to be speaking. Thank you for joining us. So as some of you may have seen in the promo leading up to this show, we do want to focus on a lot of positive things from this year, even though it's been a very hectic, crazy year. I don't have to tell anyone that. But since Eunice, this is our first time speaking here on the After Party, and you began to mention your foray into politics, maybe we could start a little there. What do you think? I know that there's still very much the agenda going on in Finland, but it is a little different from country to country in Europe. Do you think that there was an in where it was there's a little bit more of a room, or the public is a little more ready for your kind of ideas in Finland? And then in general, any lessons that you think you could pass on to others about running a successful campaign, winning a seat, and then having to navigate that position? Anything you can pass on to others that might want to emulate and model what you've done?
Yeah, I watch a lot of English streams because they are much more interesting than the Finnish streams. But if you look at Finland, we have the chance of having our borders opened only in 1990, which is 15 years after Sweden opened its border in 1975. And so that means that we have a very much smaller so-called community of migrants in Finland, and the people in Finland, they are, you could say, much more based, or they understand what it means to lose one's country, because we fought the Soviet Union in the Winter War, the Second World War, unlike Sweden, which they didn't have to fight. And So yeah, we have our country is pretty much unknown. Nobody even knows about Finland. When I lived in France for 7 years, people didn't even know the capital. They said that the capital is called Helsinki, but everybody said Helsinki. Nobody knows this country. Everybody knows about Sweden, of course. Everybody knows what that is, but Finland is much less known and much more remote. And also our language is very cryptic. I would say it's not an Indo-European language, so it's much more difficult to understand and to learn. So that also blocks what they call integration, because the foreigners they don't learn the language. We have Edward Dutton in our living in this very city.
Yes.
And he's lived here for 13 years, and he doesn't even know what the language is. So even very intelligent people don't learn the language. So this also works as a barrier against immigration. But since the 90s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, we received the Russians, or the Soviets. They had, in the 60s, they had brought in some people from Africa and those places, the communistic countries, the black communist countries in Africa, like Somalia, Siad Barre, and many other countries. They brought these people to study in the Soviet Union, to teach them what communism is. But in the 90s, the Soviet Union collapsed because it became impossible. So the Somalis that were living in Moscow, in Moscow University, they were basically told that, okay, leave this country. And they left the country, and they were brought with trains and buses to the Finnish border. And at that time we had a serious border control, but also Estonia was part of the Soviet Union, so they were also brought by boats. And that's when the Red Cross activists and these NGOs started to show their influence in this country, and they were, for example, there's a very famous case where these activists blocked the entry to the boat, and the border control was unable to enter the boat. And during this blockade, the Somalis and all these people, they were instructed to throw their passports into the sea. So they were undocumented migrants in 1990. And then they were told that okay, now you're asylum seekers. And Finland had nothing to do with this. The first so-called refugees that Finland had accepted, it was, I think, 73, or I don't know if 71. I think we had 100 Vietnamese boat people that were flown into Finland, and in 73 we had around the same amount of people coming from Chile, the people who escaped the helicopter rides. And then, I don't know, in the 80s, we had maybe some other very isolated cases. We took very small amounts, and those people, they sort of integrated because they were such a small amount, and they were placed there and there. But in 1990 or 1991, we got 2,000 Somalis from the Soviet Union, and I think their plan was to go to Sweden, but the Red Cross persuaded them to stay in Finland, and that's when everything went down the drains. And after that, we had some policy changes that we have to accept. We have to accept anybody that enters the country and says asylum. I need an asylum because I'm a persecuted politician in my home country. Even though I don't know how to read and write, I am very persecuted, so please let me in. And that's when it started. So now, after the 90s, during the 90s, we had something like 3,000 every year of these. And 2015 was the peak when we got 32,000 people from Iraq, the so-called migrant crisis, which I think it's not the real root of the problem. The problem started in 1990, because if you look at stats, you look at schools, you look at everything, you can see that those were the people that are causing today's problems. They have the second generation immigrants and so on. The 2015 thing, of course, it caused a public awareness of this problem, which is good because it opened lots of eyes towards this problem. But the problem started in 1990, and I'm still trying to explain this to many of our viewers. Some of them understand, some of them always bring back this 2015 crisis, but I don't think it's the big deal here.
In both of your being very active, do you find that people in Finland, just the average person out there, is looking to places like Sweden and seeing what's going on and are a little more suspicious? Is it a little, I know, of course, there's a lot of people out there who buy the line of the progressive, globalist, anti-white agenda, but is there a little more public sentiment that sways your way because of looking to the welfare states like Sweden or Germany and seeing what's going on and saying, we don't want to go further in this direction?
Yes, it's very clear. Like the political discussion in Sweden, it's completely different than the one we are having in Finland. Because in Sweden, multiculturalism has become a religion. They adopted it in the mid-1970s, and they then decided to be the humanitarian superpower of the world. And since that, the Swedish people have been so brainwashed into it that any opinions that criticize even the amount of immigration are considered out of line. And for example, the most radical opinions you hear from the so-called nationalists in the Swedish parliament are opinions like that migrants should learn how to speak Swedish and that we should integrate them better. So there's absolutely no room for discussion about closing the borders. And when one politician said that there should be a quota to how many migrants Sweden takes a year, he had to apologize for that opinion later on. So the discussion there is absolutely out of this world, that they have these growing problems like the grenade attacks, gang warfare on the streets, Swedish cities turning into migrant ghettos. But the political discussion is like in a bizarro world. It's completely out of touch. But at least in Finland, it's completely normal for parliament members to say, close the borders, stop the humanitarian immigration completely. We need to start deportations of these people. So this is normal political discussion in Finland. So in that sense, we are in a much more healthy place to begin, that at least we can talk about these issues with their real names. And it's rare in Finland for politicians to talk about pro-white agendas, or because Finns don't like to talk about race. They don't like to use terms like white or black. So it's more about talking about like the crimes immigrants commit and the economical impact of them, more than the ethno-nationalist agenda of protecting the Finnish heritage when it comes to mainstream politics. But of course, on the fringes of the politics, you have the ethno-nationalist movement, which are much more open about their agenda, that they are out to protect the Finnish heritage, our very unique gene pool, because we are very rare people. There are only 5.5 million of us, but still you can tell us with gene tests from all of our neighboring countries that even though we are such a small people, we have been so isolated and so tribalistic that we have become a sort of race of our own within the European peoples. So there are the ethno-nationalist movements at the fringes of politics that are more open about this agenda, but also the mainstream political discussion is much more healthier than in Sweden or in Germany. So I think that alone gives us a better chance of changing things than what the situation is in Sweden and Germany.
Yeah, if you look at the scientific data, you can see that genetically Swedes they have much more common with, for example, Spanish or French people than Finns. And many people abroad think that Finns are Scandinavian, but that's completely incorrect. And if you want to have a good lecture on how Sweden opened its border, I recommend you watch Ingrid Carlqvist. 2 years ago, she appeared on TRS with Mike Enoch, and she explained that there was this guy in 1970 something called David Schwartz, I think. I don't know his ethnicity, but I think
maybe the name
and then you can see black and white videos from the parliament in 75 with hippie looking girls with problem glasses, and they were advocating for opening the borders. But when you mention that are Finns more aware of this problem, of course they are, because Sweden in the 50s, after the war, they claimed that they needed a workforce, and they had their car factories, Volvo and Saab and all these factories, and they brought like 500,000 of Finns there. So Finns, which Finland used to be a agrarian country, Finns went there to work and became rich there. So you have a very big community of Finns, third generation Finns there, that when they visit Finland, they always talk about the problems with mass migration in Sweden that started in the 80s with the Yugoslavian and all these people, and especially in the 90s with the Kosovo war, that the suburbs started to become very unsafe in the 90s and already in the 80s. So Finns know all of this, and they have they know all of this, but for some reason it doesn't show in the political result. That we have currently, our government is left, green, Swedish, center right, and what's the fifth one? I can't remember. Something, but
Social Democrat.
Yes, Social Democrat. Yeah, she's the prime minister. So it doesn't show. People haven't understood this, and even if people understand, basically every Finn is an ethno-nationalist. They don't believe in these social constructs, or that a black guy can be a Finn or anything like this. But for some reason, it doesn't show yet in the political result. Of course, we have if you look at polls, the strongest party is the mainstream nationalist party, but it's always between elections. They have the most support, but when it's the election day, then people forget, and it's very weird.
Funny that.
Yeah.
Just as a quick point of curiosity, I know Finland isn't Norse, but I thought it was technically Scandinavia. You're saying it's not?
Well,
No.
geographically, the southwest of Finland is considered Scandinavia. But no, it's the people. We are not an Indo-European people. Our language is not Indo-European, and we have nothing to do with the Scandinavians. The Vikings, they were only in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, and of course Iceland. But Finland was and currently is a completely separate people from those. And the gene data, the genetic data from scientific studies shows this very precisely, that it's a completely different pool of genes that we have. And also you can see our language. Check the language, the Scandinavian language.
Finno-Ugric, right?
Yeah, it's
family.
it's related to Estonian and Hungarian and
Yes.
some small tribes in Russia. But of course, Hungarian. I've spent 1 week in Budapest, and I've noticed that when you listen to them speak, it sounds the flow and the tempo and the intonation is very similar to Finnish, but all their words are it's completely different.
Mhm.
But Estonia and their language, you can understand some basic stuff. You can catch a word there and there. So yeah, it's a very unique language, and in Finland officially it's a bilingual country, so we have signs in Swedish and Finnish. And you look at those, you immediately notice that this has nothing to do. Swedish is very close to German. If you know German, you can maybe understand what they are meaning. But yeah, Finland and the Scandinavian countries have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, interesting to get more clarity on that. I guess I'd seen it more as a geographical area. I did know about the language difference. Since you mentioned Estonia too, I wanted to ask you both as well. Another just quick point of my own personal curiosity. What about the Baltic countries that are close to you, like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania? Is there any kind of dialogue that you have with people there, or any kind of pulse that you sense with them? Are they similar in not wanting to go down the same path as many of the Western European countries?
Well, I think we are culturally and our nature and temperament and mentality are much more like that of the Baltic peoples than that of the Scandinavian peoples. And I think it's also due to our shared history that all of us have some history with the Soviet Union and communism. And Finns were fortunate enough to avoid the invasion by keeping the Russians out of our country. But the other countries weren't so fortunate, and that's why they are so much poorer and less developed than us right now. But also, the time spent under communism has taught them a very important lesson that Finns have missed. That when they have lived under communism, it became clear to everyone that you can have a government that is openly hostile to you, that doesn't want anything good to you. You can have a media that is simply a propaganda machinery and out to lie to you. And that's why the Baltic peoples are so critical about the EU, and they are much more suspicious about all of these new ideologies that are pushed on them, because they have a history with that. They know to be suspicious about people who are powerful. They know to be suspicious with media. But Finns have a lot of faith in authority, that Finns have always this faith that media is truthful and that the politicians are looking out for our interests, and that or at least most politicians must be fighting for what's good for us instead of being our enemies. So I think that's something that we have missed by not being invaded by the communists, that lesson that you can have a government and media who are really out to get you and who want nothing good for you. And I think that is a protective wall for the Baltic countries and Eastern Europe in general against liberalism and against the EU federalism and things like that, that they know to be suspicious about things like that. But Finns are less protected when it comes to that. So that's why it's so much easier to get Finns to be pro-EU, and it's much more easier for the media to get Finns to believe the lies about multiculturalism and diversity, because Finns have that faith in authority and media that the Baltic peoples don't have.
Hmm.
Yeah, if you look at Estonia, they suffered great losses during the Second World War. They were colonized by the Soviet Union. Stalin shipped, I don't know, 1 million of Russians into their country, or maybe not that amount, but they were sent to Siberia.
There was genocide practically
it
in
was,
all of those countries.
But now you look at Estonia, it's like every time you go there, it's like a breath of fresh air. You look at their even their state media, it's super based. Their government, they have an ethno-nationalist party in the government. Frode Midjord has even interviewed one of them. Ruben Kaleb, was on our show.
Yes, I've seen him.
And and they are against homo adoptions, homo marriages, and everything. And that's mainstream there. And they have like zero migrants, or if they have migrants, they are kept in camps and they are not let in the general population. And it's a very healthy country. They are against socialism. It's very cool. They also, of course, they suffer from the remaining Russian minority that is present there, that is causing lots of troubles. But they are open about it, and they have a very healthy public discussion about everything. Unlike Finland, which is taking every order from Sweden, and that's I hate this. You look at the Baltic countries; they are very cool. This year we went to Lithuania and to Latvia. Very epic places, very nice, clean, safe countries. You can walk there whenever you want. Finland, of course, is not so bad as the rest of Europe, but the Baltic countries, very cheap places for us as Westerners, and but very nice, safe, and friendly people, and none of this humanitarian immigration, and that's something that I hope they keep.
And one thing I especially like about these countries is how mainstream these conservative and nationalist values are, that they are not something that are highlighted as something special. They are just the norm. So it's not anything that people especially think about. It's just how they are. So, for example, when in Finland we have our nationalist torchlit procession on the Independence Day, we also have tons of Antifa there present who are shouting at us, throwing stones at us. There's a huge police presence, and the mainstream media is portraying us as fascists. But in Estonia, when they have the same Independence Day torchlit procession, there's no Antifa there. There's no police needed because there's no Antifa. People are waving at the marchers from the windows and waving Estonian flags. So it's the norm there. So it's sort of the ideal society that the conservative values, they just are.
And you have the commercial radios and TV stations interviewing the organizers and live streaming the event, and as Tiina said, people waving through the windows, and when the cars pass by, they all have the Estonian flags and they are honking and showing support. And they are all in this together. They are very much nicer than in Finland. You look at Helsinki. There's the Antifa. They threw a diaper at Tiina.
I hope nothing was in it.
No, it didn't hit me. There was something in it. I don't want to think about what it was and where it came from. But fortunately, the guy missed me when. Yeah,
it's a soy boy.
They can't
not very
throw anything.
Yeah. So.
Well, we certainly hope that. Those notions from the Baltic countries seep more over to where you are in Finland and then to the rest of us. Before we speak, we do want to speak a little bit about 2020, of course. But you'd mentioned Out of Line, a little bit about your show in English. What's behind that? What was your goal with starting that show?
Well, before Out of Line, we had a short period on YouTube where we had an English speaking stream, and our goal was to talk about the news in Finland in English, because we've at least I, having lived in Europe for several years, I noticed that Finland is always portrayed as a different country than it is. So we wanted to bring out the real perspective of the population. And when we started Out of Line, well, we continued this, but on DLive, because we got kicked out of YouTube, and that was the main reason to bring the news, like today, bring the news from Finland like it is, no sugarcoating, no nonsense.
And there are a lot of American live streamers who make great content on the live and YouTube about things that interest nationalists. But there isn't that much content about Europe from the European perspective. So that's something that we try to bring, that we try to focus on Finnish and other European news, the things that, for example, American audiences would miss otherwise because of the language barrier, because they cannot follow, for example, the alternative medias or media sites that operate in Europe. And it helps out a lot that Younes speaks 7 different languages, so he can read news in German, French, Dutch, and all those languages. So it's easy for us to do reporting about the European news with Younes being our translator.
That's a great asset. I didn't know that. 7. It's quite impressive.
I wouldn't say 7, but yeah, fluently maybe 3 or 4, but 7, yeah, it's maybe an exaggeration. I can read something and make a small translation, but yeah. Okay.
That's a great tool, and I can tell you we appreciate that here. Jason and I and our community here are very keen on hearing on the ground perspectives from all of the Western nations, and we use Western as a stand-in for European, but all the European diaspora nations around the world, and hearing it, like you said, unfiltered from your perspective, comparing things, seeing what's similar, seeing what's different among our people, the things that bind us, and then the specifics that make us different from one ethnicity to the next. Like you said, Finns, very unique people. So we love that. We cherish that very much here. So it's great to speak to you and hear about that. We know we wanted to talk about 2020 and some positive news. So I open the floor up to you on that. What was, to the extent you can, it's appropriate to talk about, what was your year like, just personally? What was 2020 like for you in your own lives?
Well, it started in January with the Estonian Ethnofutur conference, and then we were also in the Baltic countries. It was nice. And actually, that was in February. But then we came back to Finland, and I had a city council meeting, and I held an impromptu speech against the grooming gangs, and for 10 minutes I just ranted, and the police has interrogated me for that speech. And then the COVID thing started, and we talked about that, and we were advocating for closing the borders. We wanted to use the coronavirus thing to close the borders. The first case in Finland was in January the 29th, and it was in Lapland, a Chinese tourist, a woman. And we said that, okay, close the borders. We could see in Europe, there were hundreds of cases. We could see in the US, Trump had closed the borders with Wuhan and later with Europe. And we said that, okay, let's close the borders. Let's start nationalism. Let's build mask factories. Let's produce masks for whole of Europe. There was an outage of masks. Nobody could buy masks, and nobody could do this. We said, let's do this. Let's start producing so we can export the masks to the rest of Europe, and let's also close the borders. But we failed with this. And,
our government failed, and because of COVID, pretty much all of our plans got cancelled. We were planning this trip to travel with car through Europe sometime in May to go to Croatia, but because of COVID, that was cancelled. Then our Awakening conference that Jason was supposed to be in, of course, got first postponed and then postponed again because of COVID. So mostly we have been staying at home because there isn't anything else to do outside of home from the things that we normally do. We had a little holiday in by the Arctic Sea in the summer in Norway. But otherwise, we have been focusing on the live streaming stuff and the city council stuff, because those are the things we can do amidst the COVID.
We were supposed to have the Awakening conference in April, and Jason Köhne was supposed to be one of the speakers, but it was postponed to October, and then it was repostponed. If it had been postponed to August, we could have had it in Finland, because in the summer the cases were so small, the amount of cases was so small that the borders were sort of open, so even Jason could have traveled to Finland. And what else? We have, as Tiina said, in May, Frodi Meteor had scheduled a Skansa Forum conference in Zagreb, Croatia, with E. Michael Jones.
Yes.
We were supposed to go there on a road trip, and actually in the Baltic countries in February we had a road trip with Frodi. He drove us with my super old car from Vilnius, Lithuania, to Riga, Latvia. It was very epic to have him as the driver.
I'm sure a lot of people would like to have the audio transcript of that car ride.
Yeah, we had the car full of people. We had 5 people. The trunk was full of luggage. It was a very epic 300-mile car road trip, and it was very funny.
But in our personal lives, like our home life, it really hasn't changed much with COVID, because we are sort of home people anyway. So when we are not traveling or planning anything special, the thing we like to do the most is to stay at home together and do stuff here. So the social distancing stuff and the stay-at-home thing, it's the norm for us and has been before the COVID. So nothing has really changed much for us. That we live as we have always lived.
If you look at the fake news media like Vogue magazine or BBC, they claim that the Finnish government has handled the COVID situation perfectly, but it's not true. If you look at the facts, it's the only reason Finland has had this very small amount of cases and deaths is because social distancing has been the Finnish culture forever. And
we are not the most social people in the world. We like to keep a distance to other people in public places, no matter what the situation. So it's our culture protecting us from infections and not any political pressure.
More about home life.
Yeah, you can see 10-year-old memes from Finland with the people at the bus stop, and they have like, 10 feet distance between them. And so the 6 feet social distancing, it's worsening. It's less.
So if you tell Finnish people to keep a 6 feet distance, they will ask, "Do I really need to go that close to other people?"
And also the way we speak our language is such that it doesn't produce so much emissions, or
right.
Like if you look at Italy, where this started in Europe, these people, they are waving their hands and they are
loud,
and they when they speak, they spit, and but not all, but that's the way they actually work. So of course these countries, they have lots of problems, and also Europe, Belgium has maybe the worst amount of cases. You look at the UK, you look at France, they have lots of people there, and they have the subway, they have these very crowded areas. So of course this virus spreads there more easily than in Finland, where you don't have even any traffic here. You are on the highway, there's 5 cars, and if you drive to Lapland, you could drive without seeing any other cars. You could see more reindeers than cars. So of course in Finland it doesn't spread so much, but the government took credit for this, and this is fake. And also we have like 40% of the cases are because of migrants.
Yeah, they are like they come from the Somalis in Helsinki, and the so-called guest workers who work on construction sites, like the cheap foreign labor used by different companies. So almost half of the cases in Finland come from people of foreign background. So really, it's the Finnish culture protecting us, and if we had just closed the borders, and we wouldn't have to deal with any of this right now. But right now it seems that this is dragging on forever, but I don't know. I just guess we have to hope that at some point there will be enough economical pressure for the governments to stop this madness.
Yeah, and for example, in our home city, we have this paper factory, paper producing factory, and like half of the cases in this city came from that factory, and they were foreign workers. If you look at the airports, they still don't have any checks at the airports. You have people from Macedonia, Skopje, that are flying twice a week or 3 times per week to Finland without any checks. But if I want to go to Tallinn in Estonia now, I have to produce a negative test to the Estonian authorities at the border. And if I want to go to Norway, I have to be questioned that, are you really okay? If I go to Sweden is the border is 60 miles from here. I have to be questioned by these people. But these foreign workers or these tourists, we had even a headline saying that, yeah, we have migrants that are queuing for COVID tests because they are traveling to their home countries. So they need the tests from Finland to be able to travel to their home countries, which they escaped from. They were persecuted for some reason there, but they are traveling there. And when they go there, they need to have a test. But when they come back, there's no tests. And actually today we had a headline saying that they were supposed to be tested, but we don't have the staff to test them. It's so when I see these headlines saying that our government was super competent on this issue, I disagree completely, because it's not the truth, and that's that. I can show Tiina the headline. There was not enough. They were supposed to be tested, but there was not enough. This Skopje, it's I don't know what. It's a city in Macedonia, and for some reason people are flying there from there 2-3 times per week, and nothing, no tests, nothing. They are just sent here, and we have very strict restrictions. The bars are closed, the swimming pools are closed. You cannot have demonstration. Our Independence Day march was cancelled because of these cases. But when you have foreigners flying in, we cannot do anything.
Curious.
But I think all of this has been working in favor of the nationalists who are now in the opposition in the Finnish parliament, because as Jonas said, our government consists of liberals. And even though the foreign media is, of course, praising our young feminist, pretty prime minister, the Finnish people, they know the truth. So, and they are getting fed up with the restrictions because a lot of people have been unemployed. A lot of people are now facing poverty because of this. And at first there was a rise in the support for the government when the COVID crisis started, because that's, of course, a time of crisis when people want to sort of lean into the government, lean into authority to find some sort of sense of security. But that is gone now, and the support for the government is waning, and the support for the opposition is rising. So I think in the upcoming election, nationalists and conservatives are in a pretty strong position, because the government has caused so much trouble for people with their failures with the COVID that it's going to cost them in the election. And of course, it's horrible that the victory has to come like this, that it has to come through the suffering of the people, that the liberal government is causing problems for people, which is driving them to vote for nationalists instead. But that's their choice, not ours. I wouldn't want that to happen. I wouldn't want people to face poverty. I wouldn't want people to get unemployed. But that's their doing, and if it ends up benefiting us, then that's how it is, and I'm going to accept it gladly.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was just saying, continuing in that direction, I'm curious, anything that you have to say about a silver lining in all of this? I know you mentioned a big picture with maybe some perceptions changing in how the Finnish people are looking at your government. And then in addition to that, maybe what you've seen in your own work, such as you said you're live streaming more, you're at home. Has there been an increase in networking? Have you met more people, even if it's just online? Or Eunice, in your work in the city council, do you see things changing? Do you feel like a shift in the air? What are the positive things that we'd like to leave people with? And maybe some things, again, as crazy as things are, some hopeful things we can hang on to as we enter a new year here.
I think one of the big things is the symbolic victories we have had both in Finland and in America. That, for example, in America in 2016, Trump's victory, even though he didn't fulfill his promises, it gave people hope, because it showed them that it's possible to come outside of from outside of the establishment and win the election. So it broadened people's perspectives on what is politically possible. And that's the most important thing ever, because if people don't believe that something is possible, they are not going to fight for it. And the same thing happened in Finland with Jones's victory in the municipal election last time, that everybody said that it's impossible for an independent candidate to get in the city council in a big city like Oulu, but he did it. So it inspired a lot of other people also to try to do the same thing, and it also gave a lot of people motivation to vote for independent nationalist candidates, because they saw that it's actually possible. So that's the most important thing we need to do, that broaden people's idea of what is politically possible. Because if people don't really believe that that changes can be achieved, they are not going to vote for them, they are not going to fight for them. But if you can show them even one example of how a change can happen, then it can really change the way the people are thinking. And I think Trump Trump's victory in 2016 was one of those things that gave people hope and showed that sort of good example, and Younes's victory too. And also Younes has had a couple of good victories against the mainstream media. Like the mainstream media in Finland, they are used to being able to smear nationalists in any way they want. And Younes won a defamation case against this feminist journal who called him a Nazi clown and told a very false and colorful story that depicted Younes as a dangerous person in a Facebook post. And Younes filed a police report about defamation against her, won in court. Then the woman appealed. She also lost in the appeals court, and now she's appealing to the Supreme Court. And there's also another liberal journal who complained on Twitter that he is facing now police interrogation because of defaming Younes. So now, of course, that the mainstream media, they have been completely outraged about these court cases. Like when the feminist journal got convicted, it was like this fest of liberal tears throughout the media, that all journalistic ethics were thrown out the window, and they all piled up to support their colleague, even though she was found guilty of a hate speech crime like defamation. And I think it put some sort of fear of God into the media, that they now realize that they cannot do just anything, that the laws that they supported, these hate speech laws that they were they have been supporting all along, can be used against them. And we have also had several other cases in Finland in which liberals have gotten hate speech convictions when nationalists have started using their own laws against them. So I think that's also one thing that is a big victory for us, that because that's the only way to get liberals to rethink these hate speech laws. If they only win with these laws, if they only can use them against us, there's no reason for them to start reconsidering these laws. But if they get hit by these laws too, they start also thinking maybe it's not the best idea to have this sort of defamation laws. Maybe it's not the best idea to have this sort of hate speech laws when they get fines too, when they get dragged to court too.
Yeah, we have had government published videos like kids snitch on your parents, like your Pavel Mozorov. Please, if you notice that your parents or anybody is having hate speech, please inform the police. And I did this, but it was against this the stupidest woman in the world that calls her a fact checker, and she called me a Nazi clown and a racist, and I said, okay, this is hate speech, and she was convicted in 2019, and she lost her appeal this September. And as Tiina said, the mainstream media is they have been whining about this for 2 years, or I don't know how many months, but she's now on the Supreme Court, and I don't know. I hope that, or I don't know if either way. But the funniest part in that is that she was convicted, and she only has to pay 150 euros to the state, and she has to pay me 200 euros. And had she accepted this and settled with this, she would have been free. But no, she has appealed. She has had the most expensive lawyers. Her lawyer fees currently are at 50,000 euros. And it's for a 150 euro fine. And no, these people, and after this conviction, as Tiina said, there was another journalist that called me the most radioactive waste in the world or something like this. And now he is under investigation. So we are getting these journalists, these Finnish journalists, they call themselves journalists, but they are nothing but activists. And they are all going one by one to court because of hate speech. I was, or they used my opinions against me in court, but it didn't work. They claim that Juneslokka doesn't believe in hate speech, and that's true. I've said many times that I want the First Amendment in Finland, that you can say whatever you want without any convictions. But they used this, and they told the judge that, hey, this guy doesn't believe in hate speech, so how is it possible that he? And I said that, excuse me, but my opinion doesn't matter. It's the law that is the rule here. And I would love to have free speech in this country, that I can call anybody the names I want to call them, and I can say whatever I want without ending in not jail. We have had some people in jail for hate speech, and actually I have spent 3 days in jail. Why? Because I subtitled a video. And actually tomorrow is a very special day. Tomorrow the appeal court is giving its decision against me, or in my case, when in 2016 I had subtitled a video. You might have seen the video. It's a French guy in Finland, a 3-minute video, and I had subtitled it. And this January they fined me for $600, and we appealed. And tomorrow is they publish the appeal decision at I think 9 a.m. Finnish time, which is 2 Eastern. So we might win that case, and it will be very epic if we win that case. But I have spent 3 days in jail. I have paid 600 euros for subtitling a video where a French diplomat who has worked for 47 years for the French government, he held a 3-minute speech where he told his experience with Muslims when he was working in the 60s in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, in Cuba, in China, in the Soviet Union, and other places. So we might win the case, I don't know, but tomorrow we have this case. So in Finland we have lots of completely useless court cases against freedom of speech, and still you will see the government and the mainstream media and the journalist organization claiming that Finland has the freest speech, the most, and it's completely Orwellian to say that, because here you call someone a Nazi, they will get a fine. You call someone a racist, they will get a fine. You call someone racial slurs, you will get a fine, and also you will lose your job. Last week we had a prison guard that lost his job because he had commented on Facebook on mainstream news. He shared mainstream news and wrote some words where he explained that he doesn't think we are going the right way. He got fined and he lost his job.
Mm.
But when it comes to these positive developments, I think the biggest thing...
I forgot we have to speak about positive developments.
I think the biggest thing by far has been the BLM phenomenon, because even though with that phenomenon they have gained this temporary power, these race activists that they have, they use their social media hate mobs against companies and individuals to use their power, but also at the same time they are doing work for the pro-white cause that we could never do. Like when you see those videos of like BLM activists trashing restaurants where white people are having nice dinners, and when you see them toppling statues and destroying cities, they are doing advertising for our cause that we could never really do. That with every rally they are creating new white nationalists and they are they are, with every rally, they are getting some new people to think that, okay, maybe this diversity thing and integration isn't the best idea, that maybe we should just separate, that maybe we don't really maybe we cannot get along. So I think even though it has temporarily given them a lot of power, this BLM thing, in the long run, it has won a lot of people on our side because it has made it so obvious that living peacefully in a diverse society with whites being respected just as everybody else is impossible. And they have made it very clear that their goal isn't this diverse rainbow society in which everybody is equal. They have made it very clear that their agenda is fully anti-white, that it's not for equality, it's just against whites. So they have done a lot of advertising for us, and I cannot even imagine the amount of people they have actually turned for our cause throughout the Western countries, not just in the United States, but also in Europe, because it has this BLM madness, of course, it has happened throughout the world. And everywhere it has gotten white people thinking that, okay, this doesn't really seem to work.
Yeah, I watched the BLM riots in the US through live streams, and was very interested in that. And it entered Finland also, and I was disappointed because they didn't riot, so we weren't able to go and loot.
You weren't able to participate with the.
Yeah, I said that I want to go and get free beer from the shops. They didn't loot any stores. They just did some vandalization. They sprayed some churches that offered them the location, and the Finnish police were there holding the signs BLM, and they were kneeling there, and it was super gay. It's completely illegal in Finland for the police to hold signs
and take part in political demonstrations.
I've been in close the borders demonstrations, and the police, they would never have been on our side holding signs, close the fucking border. They never did that. We had a BLM thing in our hometown, and we were there with Dr. Edward Dutton, and it was very funny. We had lots of fun, and our people didn't raise their fists as the organizers wanted, but they did an other hand sign, and the organizers they started to shout at us, but Edward Dutton said, okay, you are racist, and I'm a British citizen, you are racist, and we handled the situation that way. I also was wearing a MAGA hat, and there were some people trying to steal my hat, but Tiina was protecting me. So we had lots of fun with BLM in Finland. There were some other BLM protests in various very small cities in Finland, and there were like 10-year-old girls, and it looked super ridiculous. So yeah, it didn't. It makes no sense here. In Helsinki, they had maybe 2,000 people, but there was no looting. They were just, and it was during the COVID.
Of
thing.
course, yeah.
And they had no. Well, maybe some of them had masks, but it was not a super spreader. But whenever we had our side had a Independence Day or anti-European Union thing, then it was. These people are QAnon, they are super spreaders. And this highlighted again the role of the mainstream media, which is to just spread fake news. And,
Yeah, I think the entire year with the BLM, the COVID, it has been quite an eye-opener for a lot of normies. I think that not just in one way, but on several different levels, because that's how people become red pill, that it's not the same route for everyone. Like my road to becoming red pill started with secularism, that it was the first step in my road to becoming red pilled. And then when I started noticing the double standards in the secularist atheist scene, that they were criticizing Christians and other white religions, but minor things, but they left Muslims completely out of any criticism. I started noticing this double standard, and then the migrant crisis happened, and it was also much of an eye-opener for me. So people come to this scene in a lot of different ways. Some have come through religious reasons. Some have come through maybe from some conspiracy theory scene originally, and maybe some people will become red-pilled with this COVID stuff, that they start noticing that, okay, the media isn't being truthful, that they have double standards when it comes to this. So maybe they are lying about other stuff too. So I think this year has been an eye-opener for a lot of normies, and I think it has opened a lot of ways for people to become red-pilled. Because there has been so much activity on so many different scenes, that with the BLM stuff and with the media campaign, like the smear campaign against Trump and other nationalists, and the double standards when it comes to COVID. So I think it has been one big eye-opener for a lot of is about the dishonesty of the media. And when you realize the dishonesty of the media, it's a huge step in becoming red-pilled, because then you start to question everything else they are saying too.
Right. I mean, we can pretty much say that the year of 2020 has been a clear vision. And of course, in the U.S., I don't know if it's the same way over there in Finland, but in the U.S., 2020 means you have perfectly average vision. And maybe a lot of people have now perfectly average vision after seeing all of the horror that anti-whiteism has inflicted on our civilizations, uniform horror across the West. Well, we are absolutely going to have the both of you back, because I wanted to, just so many exciting things to talk about with you both. I really wanted to talk about how the culture and the language there insulates in a way, but also might inhibit in a way your ability to advance white positive ideas to the population, and perhaps we can get into that next time. Would be fantastic. But we're about out of time. It's about time to tap out. It's been a magnificent show today, and we have over here on Entropy, we have a $5 financial gift from Tall Kevin. Looks like it will be our only question, and then we will have you all once again tell us where folks can find you and give your final thoughts. But the question, $5 financial gift from the great Tall Kevin, and that is this. Thank you, Tall Kevin. Tiina, is Ramsey Paul hindering when it comes to others aligning with white well-being? Has he been asked many times, or he has been asked many times by myself and others during his streams, but always answers in an obstructionist sense. I feel a statement on your disapproval of him will help others leave as well. So do you have any thoughts that you would like to share on Ramsey Paul? Is he a gateway, or is he now a gatekeeper? And I guess, will he stay, whichever he is, if you have any predictions? And then, of course, your final thoughts and where folks can find these two wonderful people who, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, they both are a wealth of knowledge. And before I forget, I want to wish you both the best of luck on the finding for the case tomorrow. And I also want to commend you both for using the system, the anti-white system, against the anti-whites, which I will point out, and this is something that white people really need to appreciate. Only is that sort of thing is only able to work when you have white people submerged in other white people, where there is a high level of Western morality, whatever name of religion or what have you want to place upon it. That is only able to happen in that sort of environment, because they are then surrounded by those who would sneer, look down, condemn, for not obeying the rules, the letter of the law to the exact letter. In other countries, Western countries now, where we have so many peoples of other biospirits, they don't need to follow the rules precisely. They never do, in fact. They interpret them differently depending upon who the victim and victimizers are. So it has only been useful for these two wonderful people because of the individuals that these decisions have been given to. So the question again is, Ramsey Paul, gatekeeper or gateway, and then where you all are located and what folks can expect from you in the near future.
Well, originally when we started or stopped working together on Happy Homelands, my decision was not to comment on the issue because I don't want to get into any personal public feuds with anyone, and because I don't think that's constructive. But then I started to notice that because I have worked with Paul, a lot of people assume that I support his views, and he has expressed some views that I completely disapprove of. For example, when he attacked the patriotic alternative, and Mark Collect and Laura Tauler and people like that, they are great people, and I definitely do not approve of calling them some honeypot neo-Nazis. And so when it came to that, and I started noticing that his views were pushed upon me because of our previous cooperation, I noticed that I have to take a stand and say something publicly. So no, I don't think he's on the right track. I think he wanted to wants to become some sort of a mainstream. More mainstream guy like Paul Joseph Watson or someone like that, and but it has only caused him to lose his audience, or lose the audience he has already gained, because his audience were the pro-white people, the most red-pilled people, and when he went more on the back on the alt-right side, I think he lost a lot of support, and I also think he did it for all the wrong reasons. That he did it for publicity. Maybe he thought that he would become more of a celebrity, get more viewers, get more subscribers, get more money like that. But well, that's the route he chose. And yes, I think he, in a way, is, at least in some occasions, he has been acting as a gatekeeper. I cannot say that he's that in a general way, but at least when it comes to specific situations like attacking the patriotic alternative, yes, that is clearly gatekeeping, and that's completely unfair to these good people who are working very hard in the UK.
Yeah, I've met Ramsey Paul in Sweden in 2016 or 17, and also in Helsinki, Finland, and I had watched his videos since I don't know, 2014 or something, 2013 maybe, and it's super cool. I still think he's a cool guy. He's work with Styx Hexenhammer. It's okay. I have nothing against it. Styx is also a cool guy. I'm not sure if he really has counter-signaled the patriotic alternative. If he has done this, then I disagree with this, but I still wouldn't. He's not our enemy. He's a cool guy, and he's our guy still.
Yeah, and there was this one situation that I really didn't like, that he had this one video in which he talked about the Frody meteor, and he claimed that during the Happy Homelands episode, Frody had talked about Jews constantly, and that was the reason why he had to delete that video, when that was not the case. Frody didn't bring up Jews at any point. It was Paul who asked him about that, that issue. So
Yeah, but
it was a blatant lie, and I don't understand why he felt the need to contesting Frody like that and drag him into it, because he didn't have to say anything about Frody. So I don't understand why he lied about it.
Yeah, but on that show there was some mentions of ethno-nationalism, and to be sure with the YouTube rules, he removed it. But he also put it on BitChute, so he didn't. It's like Gary P. He's very careful with the YouTube rules, as you are, Jason. On every Sunday, you're asking if Susan agrees with this. I didn't have the time to mention that I really enjoy your shows on Sunday, and also on PWR on Wednesdays. You're a super cool guy, and we are very similar in our ways of bringing the topics out. And it's sad that we weren't able to meet in April, but yeah, we will see someday. There was maybe one thing that I wanted to mention, but I can't remember what it was. But we are not in a hurry. So if you have some time, or if you have some other topics that you want to talk about, we can stay, but we can also leave. It's up to you. It's 12:20 here in Finland. So.
Well, we have. I'll talk for a couple of minutes here, and maybe you'll jog your memory. We do have to tap out here, though, very shortly. But that's an interesting take that you brought. And thank you very much for those very kind words, Eunice. I feel the same way about you and the work that you all are doing. And I just spoke this past Sunday about folks, and I guess I should clarify now, when I'm talking about Scandinavia, I should not include the Finnish, and I should speak of them separately. But the mindset up there, and very honorable folk, and decent people who are doing the right thing, and honestly moving forward with their views. Very excited about the success there and the opportunities, because it offers, again, the juxtaposition to anti-whiteism in the United States and other countries of the West around the world, when we can look to places that are shall we say, less infected with anti-whiteism than the countries in which we live, and to see how much better it actually is. Well, we need to be able to communicate that information to each other, and that is something that, of course, the anti-whites are endeavoring to shut down. And we talked about this on several Sundays now, this idea that you shut down the opposition to the Democrats in the United States. You shut them down as some sort of a positive step, when in reality that will enable the Democrats to bring forward legislation that will do things like ban whole platforms from sharing white positive information. So you will essentially, those who are working toward and for such things in the United States will essentially seal your own tomb by enthroning the Democrats in all of the houses of power in the United States. And this is primarily caused as a consequence of the ignorance of those who continue to live in the previous paradigm of how one wages political battles in the United States. And I say this because it perfectly circles back with the comment I was just making, and the successes that you all are talking about having there in Finland, where you can use the law, even when it's anti-white, against the anti-whites themselves. Not only can you not use the law that is intended to victimize white people in Western civilization against anti-whites, but you can't even, and this is, of course, the rest of Western civilization, you can't even use the laws that are just universal against the anti-whites. We have seen over the past summer these nodes of power, DAs and the like, appointed and elected, coming forward and using their power clearly in an illegal way. It doesn't matter whatsoever. We have, and of course, we're being very careful about everything we say here. So we're talking about reports by agencies like Reuters and Fox News and CNN. I'm not sharing this information because I've researched it. It's from these people. So I'm just telling you all what they have said. And we see things like governors doing things across the country that are not legal for them to do, courts doing things that are not legal for them to do, governors ignoring what courts are ordering them to do, courts ignoring what higher courts are ordering them to do. All of it illegal, but it is permissible, or it passes without resistance because anti-whites hold too many of the nodes of power. So the old paradigmatic idea that you let the opposition, in this case the Democrats, have, and which is not to say that the Republicans are not opposition, they are as well, they're not white positive, but you let the Democrats have their way, and then something will spring out of the Republican Party that will be better than before and will serve our interests better by way of that vehicle. No. In fact, that paradigm is gone. That recourse that you have exhibited, the both of you, Eunice and Tiina, where you could go to the court and say, this person slandered me, this is the law that's on the books. In the US, you can go forward and say, this is the law that was broken. They came onto my property, they threatened my life, they XYZ, and those in power who are anti-white or who are in service to a node or nodes of power over top of them who are anti-white simply laugh at you. That's the state that we're in. And all that's going to end up happening is Democrats having full run of the House, and they will implement more of legislation, more laws to make service to white well-being increasingly nigh impossible in this country. And that'll make it bad for our people around the world. But we absolutely salute the both of you. We are 1,000% going to have you both back on. And I want to say a big hello to everyone from Finland and elsewhere who are fans of these two wonderful people and the magnificent work they're doing in service to white well-being. Welcome, welcome. We hope you will stick around and become interested in Going Free and use it to perhaps translate it into your languages and then hear back from you about the success you have by using lexicon and dialectics that empower you rather than the locutions, the poisons that the anti-whites give you to use for your own defense. Pure madness. So let me give a couple of spotlights here for folks I saw over the course of this stream, as we are wont to do here on the after party. We had the magnificent Kevin was with us. Spotlight there. Landon Good. And so was DX. Big spotlight and salute to all of you. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who contributed in one way or another in the live chats on D Live and over here on YouTube. Hello to you all. Everyone who financially gifted, thank you. And it looks like we have a late financial gift from the wonderful Mr. Bloom, who is another new practitioner of Going Free. $5 here for Mr. Bloom. And he says, just caught the end of the stream. Hope all is well, everyone. Well, thank you so much. And we are well, because we are moving toward that western sunrise. And maybe it'll first peek its head above the horizon right up there in Finland somewhere. And I'm sure when it does, these two gorgeous people will let us know that it has arrived. Your final words, and maybe Eunice, if you have remembered what you wanted to say, your final words and where folks can find you.
Yeah, I wanted to add to what you said, that the court orders, for example, Pennsylvania, not following the Supreme Court order not to count the votes after a certain date. It's might be a pretty big red pill for the normies, because normies are usually used to seeing that you have a court order, that's the rule of God, you cannot breach that, but they didn't follow it. And in Finland, what the case Tiina mentioned with the Nazi clown thing, it's pretty similar, because after the court ruled that you cannot call me a Nazi clown, you had tons of liberals calling me a Nazi clown, and even having a trending Twitter hashtag Nazi clown, and making videos that Juneslokka is a Nazi clown. And basically the week before, they were like, the court has called this racism, so you cannot be against it. So now even the court orders, now even what the court decides the liberals have shown that they don't really believe what they are publishing as their orders, but they only use it when it's against us. When it's against them, then they are, oh, the court made a mistake, and they say that, but he's a bad guy, and of course we have to call him names, and so this might be a red pilling event by showing the double standards they have been practicing forever. But yeah, that's about it from my side. I thank you for having us here. I enjoy your Sunday streams. They start at midnight on Finnish time, and they end at 8 a.m. And sometimes I watch them to the end, and or I have them on background. And as I told Tiina a couple of days ago, that we are very similar. That
yeah, that is very true, that you both have a very similar style in your live streams, that you can be very calm and collected for a long time, and then something triggers you and you start ranting, and you are very similar like that, both of you on your own live streams. And when it comes to my final words for the situation, I know that things look bad right now, and especially with the COVID stuff, and with the fear of new restrictions coming, like forced vaccinations and all that. But I would urge everybody to put things into perspective, to channel that European energy that was in the people who rebuilt Europe stronger after the Black Plague that killed a third of our population, and the people who rebuilt Europe after the insane destruction of World War II. And they weren't living the life of luxury you are living. They were people who actually struggled to survive from day to day. And they were in much more dire circumstances than we are right now. And they fought and they rebuilt. And as long as there are Europeans standing, there is a chance to rebuild, and there is a chance to win. And all we need to do is to channel that same energy those people had, those generations before us, who did their job and who rebuilt the continent to be stronger and better for the next generation than it was when they arrived into it. So all we need to do is to put things into perspective. It's not that bad. Europeans have faced worse times and still persevered. So we will persevere through this too. But all we need to do is work hard for it, like the previous generations. It's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen by just whining about the situation or getting black-pilled and saying that we are all doomed. We need to do the work for the change to happen. But it's possible as long as there are European people standing.
Beautifully said, the both of you. And what an honor it is to have. It's very telling about the company you keep. It really is the old saying, and I don't know if it's really translatable to other languages, but the old saying, the birds of a feather flock together. Here you have people who are not only bright, committed, and courageous, but they're actually getting out into the world and making changes in the world. They're not just sitting around doing what we talk about others doing out there, which is the people who can be bright and what have you, where they doom document and they doom dissect all day long. It's just about, let's rehash the same sort of pedantic prattling and otherwise do nothing of any substance. So it's a big honor to learn that you all are listening to that hour, to my ass over here in the once great state of Virginia outside Washington, D.C. And I will absolutely be over there for your conference whenever you all decide to have it. And I will happily wade through the COVID-laden seas and masses to get there. But it has been a great honor to be able to appear with you all today, have you on tap. Mr. George, your final thoughts on the magnificent conversation today?
Well, I just echo what you said. I look forward, Tiina and Eunice, to speaking more. I really enjoyed this. Of course, as I said at the beginning, Eunice, the first time we had the opportunity to speak, and I definitely look forward to more. I salute everything that you all are doing, the way that you carry yourselves, and I just, it's wonderful to be surrounded by good people like this and all be able to communicate, compare notes, build energy together. This is what it's about. So thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And you are now officially the last tap of 2020. So you two closed out the year.
Yeah.
I think we closed it on a good note, realistic, but looking at the positive things that are here too. And the kind of spirit Tiina was just speaking to that we have to tap into and keep in the forefront of our minds. And really, it's a feeling, keep in our hearts, that direction, that passion. So thank you so much. I wish everyone here Happy New Year. For anyone who might be new, you can find me at thegreatorder.com. My website is easy, just one place, thegreatorder.com. You can see a catalog of what I do, ways to find me on social media, support, all of that good stuff. Jason and I have a shared site, theafterparty.tv, that catalogs all of these shows we've been doing for almost 3 years now, the After Party and related live streams. So if you're new too, and you're curious about a topic, or if a certain guest has been on, go over there to theafterparty.tv and put the name or the topic in the search. All of the past shows are pretty well documented for you. So, we're not hiding what we do. We want to keep a record of what we've done and have it stand in posterity to have other people see what this movement was about and what our thing was in this moment of history and how people like us across the European world responded to this moment that we've been speaking about tonight. But all my best and love to everyone. Tiina, Eunice, thank you again. Happy New Year to everyone listening, and we will speak to you soon.
Yes, I want to say that you can find us on DLive. The easiest way is dlive.tv/vpfm. You will see all our links down there. And also on New Year's Eve, we will be on a Frode Midjord's stream, Guide to Culture, at 3:30 Eastern.
Yes, and on Tuesdays and Fridays, we always have our English live stream, usually at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Today it was an hour earlier because of this show, but usually it's on Tuesdays and Fridays at 3 p.m. So dlive.tv/EPFM, and on that channel page, you can find all of our social media links and all that. So that's the easiest way to reach us.
Yeah. So thanks for having us. It was
thank you so much.
Very cool.
No, well, definitely. Yes.
I should. You reminded me. I'll be saying hi to Frode on 6:30 Eastern on New Year's Eve as well.
Oh, that's really cool.
Happy New Year to you all. Yeah, and make sure, ladies and gentlemen, when you do find these two wonderful people, that you show up on an English streaming episode, because I've shown up a few times and it was like being thrown back into university and even high school. You walk into a class and you suddenly realize by the conversation that's taking place that you have no idea what's being said. It's just like, what the heck? I'm not going to get anything out of this tonight. But yes, make sure it's an English stream. They're fantastic. Happy.
Or maybe keep it on in the background just to support their viewership.
There you go. That's an idea. Yeah, it'll show the numbers. But make sure you like Eunice said, find them on DLive. That's where they're pushing most of their stuff. So thank you so much, folks. It's been a wonderful time, a wonderful 2020 with everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all in 2021.